Today we're going to be talking about the Genesee River killer who targeted sex workers and children. I'd like to give a content warning for this video. This contains themes of sexual assault and rape and mutilation, and some of it's aimed at children, so if that's something you can't watch, click out now. I have more videos, there's a playlist on my channel if you want to watch more. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, I post true crime content like this all the time, so if that's something you're interested in, hit that subscribe button, give it a like, put my notification bell on so you know when I upload a new video. Today we're going to be talking about the Genesee River killer. Arthur John Shawcross was born on June 6, 1945 in Kittery in the state of Maine in the US. He had 3 younger siblings and he was the oldest. It has been said that it was fate that Arthur was going to be a killer because he had the textbook traits: arson, head injuries, wetting the bed, and an awful relationship with his parents. Arthur and his family moved to Watertown in the state of New York. In school, Arthur found it difficult to make friends and was shy and very quiet, but he went from a reserved kid to the school bully, and he would have violent outbursts. Arthur claims that he was sexually abused as a child by his own mother. He says that she would insert foreign objects into his anus. His aunt had also performed oral sex on him at the age of 9. He also claims that he had sexual relations with his sister when he was in junior high school. He said all of this in an interview later on in his life, but his family contradicts this and says all of this was stories that he'd made up and that he had a normal childhood. Arthur had a low IQ and had no friends, which led him to dropping out of school. When he was 19, he decided to join the US Army and was sent to Vietnam. Whilst in Vietnam, Arthur claims to have killed 39 people in combat, which was debunked later in the investigation. He also claimed to have killed, raped and eaten 2 girls whilst on this combat mission. Now, there's nothing to prove these claims are true, so can't prove whether it's true or not. But it was proved that he did not kill anyone in combat, even though he claimed to, and he also claimed that he killed some innocent women as well, which is not something to brag about, really, is it? Arthur, in his lifetime, had been married 4 times. He had children too, but had no relationship with his children. All his marriages had ended in divorce due to his bad temper. During his 3rd marriage, Arthur moved back to New York. On May 7th, 1972, Arthur kidnapped and murdered his neighbour's 10-year-old son, Jack Blake. He lured him into the woods where he suffocated the boy to death. He then sexually assaulted the boy's dead body. Searches for Jack were taking place, but his body would not be found in the woods for another 5 months after his murder. When pathologists had examined this body, it was found that the young boy's genitals had been bitten off. Arthur had taken this boy fishing a few days before his murder, so when people were being questioned, Arthur Shawcross's name was brought up. The police questioned Arthur and he told police that he had no idea about the boy's disappearance. 4 months after the body of the 10-year-old boy was found, another body was found. This time it was the body of 8-year-old Karen Hill, which was found under a bridge. This girl had mud and debris shoved down her throat. She'd also been raped, and again, when neighbours were questioned, Arthur's name came up because Arthur had been seen hanging out with the girl by the bridge shortly before her attack. In October of 1972, the police bring Arthur in for questioning, and surprisingly he confesses to both murders. Arthur's attorney was able to drop the charge for the murder of the boy due to lack of evidence, which I don't get, and he was given a plea deal for the killing of the 8-year-old girl. Arthur was charged with manslaughter and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Now, you would think this is where the case is going to end, but unfortunately it's not. All of the following events could have been prevented if Arthur had just stayed in prison, but he only ended up serving 14 and a half years of his 25-year sentence due to good behaviour. Honestly, I don't care how good your behaviour is. If you've killed a child, then you should not get out 10 years before your sentence, no matter how well behaved you are. In March 1987, Arthur moved to Binghamton in New York. He was shamed publicly because all of his neighbours were aware of his crimes and knew who he was. They would try and make him feel as uncomfortable as they could. This resulted in him moving again. But again, the people knew who he was, so he couldn't escape his crimes, which, good. This next part baffles me. Arthur spoke to his parole officer and informed them of his struggles. They managed to sneak him into Rochester, New York, and helped him to fit in. They did this by wiping his criminal record, and it was made unavailable to be seen by the law enforcement. Usually the police are able to look you up and it will come up with all your charges, like you did this, this and this. But they decided to hide Arthur's criminal record so he could live a happy life and be accepted into the community. Which I'm surprised the parole board even allowed this to happen. Now, the authorities would later regret this as it hindered their future investigation. Right, Arthur is living his best life at this point. He's moved to a new place and nobody knows about his past. And he isn't being checked on the police, so he's great, he's happy. At this point, Arthur has been doing small little jobs to make some money. He'd also got himself a girlfriend, but this relationship wasn't going so well. Arthur would frequent the local area for sex workers. He would use their services a couple times a week, and the workers began to know who he was because he would see them so often. In March 1988, the body of a 27-year-old sex worker was found in the Genesee River. Her body was found floating underneath the ice on a stream. When her body was examined, they found bite marks on her lower extremities. She had marks around her neck signifying strangulation. It was also found that the killer would return to the bodies after the murder, cut off parts of the body and then eat it. There were no witnesses to the crime and no evidence was found, so this case went unsolved for over a year. Another body of a sex worker was found in September of 1989. She was also strangled and was found with bite marks. This body was found quite a distance away from the first body, so the police did not link the two murders. A month later, in October of 1989, the body of a 59-year-old homeless woman was found, followed by another sex worker's body that was found 6 days later. Both these bodies were found in the same area and both had strangulation marks on their necks. At this point, the media had caught wind of this case, and this is when the killer was given the name the Genesee River Killer. The media really love to give killers names, don't they? The police believed that the killer had criminal and military experience, and they paid a visit to the local sex workers and warned them and just told them to be careful. So, remember, Arthur's criminal history was wiped, so the police couldn't see it. So the police are looking through the local criminal record, and Arthur's didn't come up because it had been wiped. More women started disappearing, so police believed that the killer was a frequent user of the sex workers' services. So the police questioned many of the workers to see if they knew anything, and they got the names Mike or Mitch a lot. This Michael Mitch was described as being intimidating, violent, and very angry. So police thought that this lead seemed promising and most likely going to be the person that they were looking for. Another body of a 26-year-old woman was found on Thanksgiving. She had been strangled, sexually assaulted, and her genitalia was mutilated, with some parts being removed completely. This woman was also cut from her throat to her crotch. This is done on animals to drain them of all their blood. The police decided to get the FBI involved, and then they came up with a profile of the killer. This killer was believed to have been a male in their 20s or 30s, white, and had a previous criminal record and was very strong. He must have known the area pretty well, and the sex workers must have felt comfortable around him to be able to get into his car with no questions asked. The sudden rise in intensity in injuries of the bodies suggested that the killer was becoming more confident and more comfortable around killing people. November 27th, 1989, another body was found. This time, Michael Mitch had been seen with this woman before her attack. They had no more leads, but they knew that this Mitch or Mike guy was the right guy that they were looking for. By the way, I hadn't said, all these bodies are being found around the Genesee River. It's called the Genesee River Killer, Brandon. Jesus Christ. December of 1989, a pair of jeans were found with an identification card in the pocket. So the police are thinking the obvious, that this woman was a victim of the river killer. In January of 1990, a police helicopter flew over the area of the Genesee River. They found a naked body of a woman on the ice. This woman was not the woman whose ID had been found, but it was another missing sex worker, and her body had been cut in half. The helicopter is still flying around when they see a van. They see a man standing next to his van, and he appears to be masturbating. Arthur had come back to the crime scene to relive the attack, and luckily the police were there when he was doing this. Patrol officers were alerted of the man on the bridge, and they were sent to investigate. The license plate on the van Arthur had been driving showed that it was owned by his girlfriend. They asked him what he was doing and why he was masturbating on the bridge. They ask him for ID, and he tells them he didn't have a driving licence. So, I guess, appreciate his honesty, I don't know. But at least he's being honest about something. And he also decided to tell the police about his previous conviction for manslaughter. They decide to bring Arthur in for questioning because they're very confident in the fact that this was the Genesee River killer, and they were right. In his questioning, Arthur talked about the deaths of the children and him killing 39 people in Vietnam, which again was discredited. A photo was shown to all the sex workers, and they confirmed that Arthur was this Mitch or Mike guy. They also found out about Arthur's criminal history being hidden, which is so frustrating because if his record was accessible, these deaths would have been prevented, or at least he would have been caught sooner. Arthur had no problem talking about the murder he had spent time in prison for, but the police could not get a confession out of him for any other murders. Arthur's girlfriend Clara was brought in, and the police noticed that she was wearing some jewellery. They ask her where she got it from, and she tells them that her boyfriend Arthur had given them to her. They had a picture of one of these victims, and she had the same jewellery on. So they decided to use this to their advantage. They confront Arthur and they say if he doesn't confess that they would charge his girlfriend and implement her in the murders as well. So this made Arthur panic and he confessed to all the murders. And he also confessed to 2 other murders which had not been discovered. He even took the police to find the bodies. His formal confession was 80 pages long. He claimed he killed the first woman in self-defense as she had bitten him. He said he killed another one because she tried to steal his wallet, and he also killed another one because she was too loud during sex, which, sir, that is not self-defense. Arthur says that sometimes he will return to the bodies and eat pieces of their skin weeks after the murders. In November 1990, Arthur's trial began. He was charged with 10 counts of murder in one county and another murder in another county, which had to be tried separately. His defence argued an insanity plea. They argued that he had a cyst on his brain, his upbringing, post-traumatic stress disorder, and that he had a rare genetic defect which made him kill people. Which I'm not convinced, but work. Arthur was also interviewed by a defence psychiatrist. This interview was shown to the jury. He told the psychiatrist that he was possessed by a 13th century English cannibal called Ares. Now this could be true, or he could be making up to go into that narrative of insanity. He also blamed his mother for the murders, saying that he heard his mother's voice telling him to kill the victims. Anyways, Arthur was declared legally sane and was found guilty of 10 counts of second-degree murder and was sentenced to 25 years for each count, which altogether is 250 years. In 2008, Arthur had a pain in his leg and he was transferred to hospital from his prison cell where he died due to cardiac arrest. So that's the story of the Green River Killer. Not the Green River Killer, the Genesee River Killer. If you enjoyed, give it a like, subscribe. My socials are going to be on the end card with more videos. So if you enjoyed, go check them ones out. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching. I will have a case request form in the description, so if there's any case you want me to cover, go down there, and yeah, I'll see you later. Bye.